Joppa's stream summary from last night. Let me turn that down a little bit. Joppa's stream summary. His stream was about 2.5 hours long. It was really only about 2-ish hours, a little over 2 hours, and then it was just, you know, some kind of discussion and stuff after that. But it started out. Joppa is not going to comment on the Black Moon discussion stuff, all the things that are happening over on Black Moon with all of the drama, etc. He had not read anything on that. As of yesterday, he did not really know about it, and he was like, I can't really say anything about it, so there was no comment there in the beginning of the stream. We'll talk about more of that later on. After that, there was a con change discussion. Some people love it. Some people don't love it. It just all depends on who you are and how it feels. So there was a little bit of con change discussion there. More server population discussion. There's still no word on the plan for that, where it is going, and what their plan is to change that. He did say that he was going to try to bring that up in meetings today, and maybe he would have more information on that either today or later on this week. Today being Tuesday, he is supposed to stream tonight or this afternoon, whatever, as well. So maybe we'll have more information on that tonight. Maybe we won't, but hopefully sometime this week we'll have some more information on that. Around the 33-minute mark, he showed off some hairstyles, some character design stuff. It's nothing really groundbreaking, but there were some new hairstyles for female characters, with ponytail and some like side comb stuff and things like that. It looked really cool if you want to go check it out, but nothing really to go and like, oh my God, this is amazing, because it's not coming in the game anytime soon. He also did show off a little bit of the robes and stuff for dwarves and ogres, because he showed off robes previously, but now they're working on dwarves and ogres for robes as well. So that you can see all around the 33-minute mark. Let's see, up to 36 minutes. There is a new Wild Blood design and Golden Fang models that are going to be coming in. They are working on. He didn't show any of these off in, or I would probably pull those up and show you guys. But they are working on some new models for that, and they're working on some VFX work, so visual effects work, mostly for the Druid, is what he said. But that is coming in kind of across the board, mostly for all of that. They're also, let's see, fog is too much. And that's kind of why I'm doing this during this fog time. So a lot of people are saying that the fog is too much. I just kind of talked about it on my stream a little bit, but fog is a little bit too intense. This is what it looks like in Silent Plains at night. It is a bit crazy. This is with a torch equipped, and you can see that the torch is doing literally nothing as I am sitting here killing this. It doesn't light up the ground. It does nothing. So the fog right now in the game is just way too much. Joppa did say that he agrees that it is too much. People are saying that they like the fog. The fog, I like the fog too. Joppa likes the fog. A lot of people like the fog. They like the idea of the fog. It's just a bit too intense, and it's permanent during the night. It looks like this, and it's not a good thing overall. So if you like this kind of thing, I apologize, but hopefully it's going away for the rest of us that absolutely cannot stand it. I'm not going to say any more on that. We don't have an ETA. Silent Plains Wild Blood still needs some tuning. Joppa did say that they are a bit overtuned, so he talked about that very, very briefly. Nothing really to go over there other than he did say that they are a bit overtuned. At the 46-minute mark, he started working on clerics and talking about clerics, and there was a kind of a long discussion. A lot of people were going into the clerics, like, hey, how does a cleric feel, etc. And he was going over some ideas of the cleric. None of it is set in stone, but he will be working on cleric today, on Tuesday, and hopefully we might see some changes as early as Wednesday. He didn't say that. I'm saying that. But at the very latest, maybe next Wednesday's patch, we will start to see some cleric changes, which would be really nice to see since we already got most of those shaman changes in. It'd be awesome to get both of the current healers and then the new healer of the druid when it comes in, have all those kind of worked out. So basically the gist of what was talked about during the cleric discussion is healing and shields are decent. So he feels like the direct heals are good for the cleric, and shielding feels pretty good. Maybe make a few adjustments on the shielding. Some people were saying that these shields are overpowered. Some people are saying that, just different things about it. So we'll see how those adjustments come in. But overall, Joppa feels that the healing and shielding are good. Some changes may be made to the AoE healing on the Cleric. There's 2 different AoE heals. There's like an arc light heal where it bounces around between like 3 characters or something, and it heals the lowest level person first. And then there's another one that is I think it's called Luminate or something. Anyway, it's an AoE heal for the entire party. And he feels like he wants those to be really powerful when you use them. He wants you to feel the power, and you feel like, I just healed my entire party and it feels really good. That's the idea there. And he feels like that currently that is not the case. So he's probably going to be adjusting those, maybe boosting those a little bit to make them a little bit better or feel a little bit better. More discussion on cleric spells. After that, there is no direct attribute buff other than AC HP buff, which is the bravery line on the clerics. There is discussion of possibly adding in a dex or con buff or both to the cleric. But those are just on the table. They're not necessarily something that would definitely happen. I know that recently the shaman got the dex buff kind of taken away from them. And a lot of people were like, I don't really like that. And now you're going to give it to the cleric. So we'll see what happens. I do think the cleric should get a constitution buff. I think that would be a very good thing for the cleric, and it fits the role of the cleric. So that, I think, should be on the table. But the dex buff, I think they should maybe move it around a little bit. I don't really know. But anyway, that's not for me to decide, but that was the discussion that was had. Let's see, less overlap on stat buffs. He doesn't want to have like the druid and the shaman and the cleric to buff the same stats. So he's looking at doing different buffs for different classes. So all the 3 different healer classes might buff some stat or maybe 2 stats, but he doesn't want them to overlap. He then went over a little bit more of the shielding and how it feels. For the most part, people feel like shielding is good, but he does want to add in group shielding because there is currently no group shield available in the game. There is one actually in the game. It's level 99 spell right now, but you can't actually use it. But he said that is in the game for a reason, and I believe from my take on that is that might become a spell that we have in the future. I believe that drops currently over at the manor, so you might want to go to the manor, get that spell. I don't know if you can buy it or not, but whatever. Anyway, it is a spell that you can get that's level 99 currently, probably be adjusted down to an appropriate level in the future. Let's see, which stat is more important? So stat discussion kind of continued at that point around the 59-minute mark, talking about different stats. So if you look down here at your stats, you can see that I need strength and constitution to increase my damage for my kick ability. And some people were discussing, well, which one of those is more important, if there is one that's more important. And Joppa has stated that both of those are equally weighted. If they are not currently equally weighted, they are supposed to be equally weighted. And when they do different adjustments to the classes as they go forward and they're making these adjustments, those will be fixed so that they are equally weighted. So as of right now, just assume that they are all equally weighted and play as that way. If you want to really min-max right now, then you could try to figure out if one of them is weighted more than the other one currently, but that will not be the case in the future. That's pretty much where that is. Went into a discussion about parsers and mods and if they're okay to use. And Joppa mentioned a little bit about those. He didn't go into a lot of detail, but he basically said that parsers are okay to use, but they do not sanction them. They are not saying that, hey, this parser is good, this parser is bad. They don't do any of that. You can use a parser, and they will not ban you or suspend you or anything like that for it. But use at your own risk. It is an application you are downloading from a different source that is not affiliated with Visionary Realms, so they cannot say whether it is safe or not. That is for you to decide, and that's how he left that. So just leaving that there. As for mods, I would recommend just staying away from mods. Joppa kind of hinted at that. He didn't say that outright, but he did say any mods that change the fundamentals of the game are bannable, effectively, is what he said. I don't think he used those exact words, but be careful if you're putting any mods in the game. There are mods that are out there, and if you use them and they change the fundamentals of the game and you get caught, you will be banned, is basically how that works. So just be careful with those. If you're using a mod that doesn't really do a whole lot, he said you're probably going to be fine. However, again, I would just recommend staying away from mods at this point. Just don't do it until they decide what they want to do. As far as if they're going to use mods in the future or allow them in the future, it's one of those things that they're not 100% sure on, because mods can drastically change the game and make it required for some players to use. In World of Warcraft now, you pretty much have to have certain mods installed. Otherwise, you cannot play the game, competitively with other players. It's just basically impossible. Targeting range, the click targeting range, when you're trying to target something that is far away and you're trying to click on it, Joppa did say, quote, "It sucks." So they are working on that. It is a thing that he is aware of, that the team is aware of, and they are looking at different ways to hopefully fix that in the future. Spell stuff. So some adjustments to the spellcasters. Spellcasters prior to the most recent patch had like a 25-meter range, and if they were outside of that 25-meter range, they would just stop. And now that they have a little bit of a buffer, is what he called it. So the buffer basically, allows them to continue casting if you move outside of that 25-meter range. That has caused some bugs, which he talked about later on, and I'll kind of discuss a little bit later on the overview here. But that is where they're at with that. There is a new thing that's coming in. I don't think it's coming in on Wednesday. It might be coming in on Wednesday if they have a patch on Wednesday. I'm not saying there is, etc. Nobody's giving any dates anymore. But the new thing that's coming in is labeling of areas. There was a part in the stream at the hour 13-minute mark where he went into the Rogue Den area of Avelia, and it popped up on the screen. It said Rogue's Den. There was a couple other places that he went to, Mad Run, Hownir Cave, some other places where it popped up and it said Goblin Caves. And that's because Goblin Caves is currently being used as the placeholder for all of those kinds of things outside of the Rogue's Den, apparently. But that has been fixed on a different iteration that will be pushed out to us eventually. So we might actually start seeing labels when you enter certain areas, like maybe when you enter Hangor, it'll say, Hangor, this is Hangor at the top of the screen. So you know that you have officially entered that area, which is kind of a cool thing that they are adding in. It's very neat and I like it. It doesn't really change the gameplay any, but kind of neat. Moving on, gray mobs are easier to aggro. This was a thing that's been coming up quite a bit recently. Since the con changes, gray mobs are easier to aggro. He did test this a little bit at the hour 15-minute mark, and he did, in fact, show that gray mobs aggro from a farther distance, but he did say that that's not necessarily a bad thing, but they will look at it in the future. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail there, but that's basically where he's at. He did look at it. He did see what we were talking about, or what the community as a whole is talking about, the differences, and he will look at that and see if it's something that they want to change. Range bow and arrow itemization is a known issue, and they are working on that issue. So hopefully we'll see some bows and arrows coming in for more itemization in the future. Of course, that really only affects a few classes. I believe the rogue, ranger, and warrior. I don't think anybody else can use a bow and arrow. Maybe they can. Let's look down here. Maybe bard. Yeah, bard can as well. So anyway, that is going to be coming in the future. At the hour 40-minute mark, this is where we go back to the beginning of the stream, and people are talking about drama a lot with the whole GM situation. It was brought up yet again on Joppa's stream at the hour 40-minute mark. I am not going to go into a lot of detail here. He did talk about it for about 15 minutes, and I was trying to get him to stop talking about it. And I was like, you're just going to fall into a trap, because he hadn't read the details on it. So if you're curious on that, you can go listen to it yourself. Again, I'm not going to go into it, other than he did iterate what the current rules are that are on the website. And he basically just effectively didn't read those, but he just said what those were and what the idea is, that 51%, you can compete for it, et cetera, et cetera. Again, go back and listen to that if you really care. No more info from Joppa on the Druid going forward. He has zero more info on the Druid. We will not be seeing any more info on the Druid. Whenever it's released is when it's released. That is not up to him anymore. That is up to the people that are in charge of releasing content. Talk about getting NPC mechanics to the point where in-game encounters can be worked on. So he did talk about that very briefly right at the 2-hour minute mark, like hour 59 minutes, where the they are working on some mechanics. They're changing some mechanics, adjusting some mechanics. The spell casting thing is one of those where they are trying to get mechanics in place for those in-game type stuff. At this point, he basically was talking about going into Mad Run and doing some testing of Mad Run because there's line of sight issues. This goes back to that spell casting having unlimited range, and people were complaining about that. So they're basically, what they're saying is it was a 25-minute or 25-meter max range, and then they adjusted that to where it has some leeway, a little bit. If you go into 26 or 27 meters, it'll still finish the cast if they had already started casting it. But people were basically saying that now it is there's no max range to it. They can do stuff from around corners, etc. He tested that around the 2 hour, 5 minute mark in Mad Run. I didn't see a whole lot of issues there. He didn't seem to see a whole lot of issues there. But when you're playing the game, and I have seen issues in the game, so I think it's more of a bug that sometimes happens, sometimes doesn't happen. But there is an issue right now with max range and stunning of mobs and the rush ability and the frenzied rush and all of those. So if you want more information on that, it's around the 2 hour, 5 minute mark. There's not a whole lot of information there. In that discussion, they also talked about the FD problems where when you FD, you are considered dead, so another player cannot heal you or buff you or cast any spells on you, but you're not technically dead, you're feigned death, and they are working on those going forward. So he did acknowledge that you are currently dead, and there's reasons for that, but anyway, hopefully they fix some of those in the future. The rest of the stream from the 2 hour, I would say 2 hour, 15 minute mark all the way through the very end of the stream was mostly just discussion about lore and undead stuff and, just ideas, nothing really concrete that anybody really is concerned about unless you're concerned about lore. There was an economy discussion, again, very briefly during that time, and the pet discussion for shamans, basically how the shaman pet came in a little bit too powerful in the last patch and they have toned it back down. A little bit of that information. Again, things that have previously been discussed, so I'm not going to go over them again here. That is pretty much the wrap up or summary of the Joppa stream from yesterday. We will be watching it again today, and I'll do another video on that tomorrow.